We're living in very interesting times, and we are seeing quite a transition in how conversations are done and by who. And of late, we've had these conversations about Gen Z and the millennials, and I want to do this video addressing the parents. In 2005, a curriculum was brought into Kenya. That's at least as early as I am aware. And this curriculum is part of the comprehensive sexuality education that has been carried out and implemented across different nations. The particular curriculum that was brought to Kenya was called The World Starts With Me. So we have children who grew up in Christian homes hearing that God created heaven and earth, but they went to school and they were taught that the world starts with them. And that is just the first lesson. There are 10 lessons in this curriculum. This first lesson, if you unpack it, what you realize is that it underscores that human beings are by themselves an end to themselves. People determine what happens to their lives. I determine what is good, what is right for me. And that is when we began to hear truth is relative. Your truth can be your truth and not necessarily my truth. So we have a generation that struggles with relationships, that struggles with understanding their purpose, because this is an existential kind of a conflict in their hearts and in their minds, because it's no longer about God, it's about them determining their lives. That's why we have lines like YOLO, you only live once. So if you make your ending, your exit more thrilling, why not? You just cease to exist. People who do not have a clear understanding about the fact that there is a God in heaven to whom we will give an account. I remember reading an account of a teenager who was a mass murderer in the US of A. And this young man, while he was in prison, after killing about 22 little girls, because he would find them, he would rape them, he would kill them. And he confesses while he's in prison after being preached to, and he gets to understand and begin to interact with the concept of God. And he says, no one told me this. No one told me this. I never imagined that I would have to give an account to anybody. So as long as it feels good, as long as it is thrilling, why not? So we do have that generation, and do not forget what they are taught by modern day science, that all this that we see was caused by a random process that took place over many years, immense periods of years. And so the concept of God is so foreign to many of our young people. The buck stops with the parents, not with military, not with political leaders, not even with church or religious leaders. You will notice that there is a vehement resistance to every form of authority, except the rightful, divinely instituted, mandated to bring up children, that is the parents. And so I'm calling out to you as parents. This is the time to call your son and daughter and have a Genesis chapter 1 conversation. And don't do it in a rush. And don't do it like you're preaching. No, calmly have a conversation. Read through Genesis chapter 1 and let that concept of accountability to a creator God sink in the minds, in the hearts of our sons and daughters. Help them to understand that they were created as persons. Because if we were all from a random machine, then we have no purpose. We have no personhood. But no, that is not what the Creator teaches. And you need to tell your children, I need to tell my children, that they were created with a purpose, A purpose both for the now and for eternity. But it's got to be you, Mzazi. It's got to be me, Mzazi, telling it to our children. Of course, some of us have Generation Alpha, but for those of you who have the millennials and the Gen Z, please do that call. If you can do a physical, all the better. But let's have this conversation and let us begin to have this biblical conversations of what God has said about life. You'll also realize that many of them struggle with relationships because sadly, to compound this entire problem is that they have been handled by absentee parents many times who also may have not been as intentional as they should have been, so that they have seldom been told words like, I love you, I care about you, you're important to me. And so there's a generation that finds it difficult to identify with emotions because they have been subjected to painful experiences. They have to deal with trauma. And so even as we call on them, we draw them in with God's love. What do we mean by God's love? God's love is not Hollywood love. Hollywood love is romantic love. It's a romanticized love. But God's love is a firm love that corrects, that guides, but also that states that there are consequences to behavior. And that should anything happen and you die, it doesn't end there. Because there is a generation that believes once they die, they just cease to exist and it's all quiet from there. No. Parents, let's have these conversations.